Good morning, class, and welcome to AP Physics C. For those of you who have not had a chance to meet before, my name is Mr. Bliss. I'm really looking forward to kind of embarking on the school year with you all, an opportunity to kind of learn as we end up studying this really interesting subject we have of physics. Obviously, you can tell I'm not in person with you today for the first day of school. Unfortunately, I'm currently serving on a jury for the next couple class periods. They are estimating it's going to wrap up sometime around September 3rd. That's when kind of our deliberations will start. So hopefully I'll be back on St. John's campus very shortly here. But basically just wanted to do is take a little bit of time today, kind of go over some information regarding the course structure, the syllabus, kind of take care of a few different housekeeping things as we go throughout these first couple of class periods. And basically what we'll have is throughout the time that I'm gone, there'll be various assignments for you to kind of work on either individually or with groups. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about those once we cross that bridge. But to begin here, just want to go over a few things that we have for this. So typically, when you kind of enter the classroom to start a day, there'll be an agenda that looks very similar to this one that is up here on the screen. And basically, our plan for today is, again, you'll be watching this introductory video by a proctor. We'll also kind of do a few things of setting up various accounts we'll be using throughout the year. And then we have kind of a couple different homework assignments we have listed there. So the first thing that we kind of have for homework, so you might have noticed that on Canvas, this morning should have unlocked the answer key to the first part of the summer project. Again, I do apologize for any confusion about the multiple due dates. I was hoping to have it set up in a way in which that you all did not have a lot of work all piled up at the end of the summer. I did was kind of spread it out over the break we had. I was unfortunate I did not have a up-to-date kind of roster for who was actually in the class. So if you did not turn in that first part of the summer project, the math review portion back in July, that's quite all right. It's still going to be full credit up until this point. And then for those of you who have not yet quite finished the part two, the more kinematics, one based things, lucky day again, since I'm not in person, I'll really kind of give everyone an extension until Friday for that. So first part of your homework is just to go through that kind of answer key that is posted on Canvas, kind of check your work. Again, once I'm back in the building, we'll have ample time for asking questions, meaning during homeroom, before school, over flex time. That way we can kind of answer those questions before we ultimately have a quiz on that. So just note, do not anticipate giving that quiz until I'm back in person in the building. The other homework assignment we have is this student questionnaire. Basically just like a chance for me to get to know you all a little bit more as people. So I'll cover anything from hobbies, interests, other classes you're taking, things in that nature. I do really appreciate you taking the time to fill that out. And then final piece of homework we'll have for tonight is we're just going to ask you to sign the syllabus as well as this Flynn scientific safety contract that is posted on Canvas. Again, for that, you do have over the weekend. So again, if you're not able to get your parents to sign that right away, you do have a little bit of time. That will be due Wednesday, September 3rd. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is just going to be some syllabus information. So feel free to kind of pull this up on Canvas and kind of take a look at it as we go through. But first things first, if there is ever any moment throughout this year which you have a question, have a concern that you want to raise to me, more than welcome to kind of work with you, help you. So my email is probably the best way that you can contact me. So that's going to be cbliss@stjohnschs.org. I also hold office hours after school, normally here roughly until about 3:30 or so. And then also am in my room for 18 most mornings as well if you're able to come before school. But if there's ever a time that you want to meet, just shoot me an email. Let me know. You're telling me at the beginning of class, end of class, and we'll definitely kind of make the time for you all. The next thing I want to cover is just a few kind of classroom rules we have as we're kind of working together here. First, again, you might well be aware of kind of the new cell phone policy. It's much stricter than it was in the past, something that we kind of as a school administration are looking to clamp down a little bit more than we have in the past. So again, the cell phones need to be put away in either backpacks or lockers. And if you are caught with your cell phone for the first offense, basically what you have to do is turn it into Dean Smith in the mornings before school starts for 4 weeks. Again, if you then get caught a second time with a cell phone, then that would be basically turning that phone in at the beginning of the school day to Dean Smith for the rest of the school year. The other thing kind of talk about is dress code. Again, as seniors, kind of done the drill before, but just make sure that we're only wearing sweatshirts that are St. John's approved, so like the quarter zips. Do note it does get pretty cold in 418, particularly during the winters. So something to keep in mind, you might want to have a jacket even if the rest of your classrooms are warm. Very good chance it can be pretty cool in this one. And also just kind of as you're coming to the room, just do a quick double check, make sure you're in proper uniform, shirts tucked in. If you ever do need to use a restroom, just raise your hand, grab one of the passes that's by the front door when the green passes. If you do, though, need to go somewhere else on campus, so like nurse, counselor, I'll be able to kind of write you a hall pass for that. Other thing is that there are going to be kind of ample opportunities for us to kind of be doing independent work throughout the year. If you're a person who likes to listen to music while you're doing that, you're more than welcome to. You can kind of plug the headphones in for that. Just, make sure that you're able to control that music off of your iPad. But other than that, we do ask that if we're doing something as a full class or we're asking you to work in groups, that you kind of stay engaged with the class, not use headphones during that time. Another thing, again, this is obviously a first period class, so it can sometimes be challenging to make it to school for beginning of our 8:10 school day. Please try to do your best, though, to make it in time. Again, if you are missing the first 10, 15 minutes class period, sometimes it's hard to kind of pick back up where we had been. So the least amount of class time you can miss kind of best ends up being for people's grades and understanding overall. And then last kind of talking about this in terms of tests. So if you do qualify for certain accommodations, again, the new policy this year is that's going to be automatically given to you. So for instance, for say 50% extra time, basically what I'll do is I'll split the test into 2 different parts. One for you to take in class, one for you to take later on your own time in the testing center. And you can do that during community time, flex time, free periods. And if you would like to opt out of that, you just need to send me an email, copy with your parents and counselors, just letting the school know that you're okay with not making use of those accommodations that you have. Other than that, again, we'll just ask you to kind of come to class, ready to engage, work done, able participant in the different activities we'll be doing throughout the school year. So the next thing we have about the syllabus, just a couple of materials we're going to ask you to acquire for this year. Now at this moment, since I was been at jury duty, have learned a lot about the law, I'm going to ask the proctor to close their ears for a second. I do not want to incriminate myself here. But our textbook is honestly one of the best college level textbooks. I've seen many college physics and engineering departments use it as well. If you were to Google this Fundamentals of Physics by Halliday Walker and Resnick online, you probably will notice it has about a $100 retail value. Now, you obviously did not hear it from me, but rumor on the street is if you look hard enough, there are publicly available free PDFs of this exact textbook to be found online. So again, I'm not recommending you do that, but I will let you all decide to use that information however you would like. In addition to that, if you're a person who prefers taking notes by hand, bring a notebook. If you like using Notability on the iPad, you can do that as well. Obviously, as seniors in an upper level class getting ready to move on to college, at this point, hopefully you kind of know what classroom note-taking, classroom participation strategies work best for you. So I'm going to give you that kind of freedom to make that choice for yourself. And then last thing, just make sure that you have a graphing calculator. Again, most standard ones that you purchase are approved by the College Board, but if you do want to double check, there's a link in my syllabus that will take you to that College Board page. From here, just a couple quick things about the grading policy. Again, we have a weighted categories system for this class. So 10% grades made up of homework, class, or participation, 20% for labs and projects, 25% for quizzes, 45% for tests. Now we'll talk a little bit more about this once we get to our first test of the school year. But so what we do for them is that they are primarily taken from old AP, MCQ, and FRQ questions. So those tests are going to be scaled according to an AP grading system. And basically what we do is we'll do test corrections to basically like earn that AP curve on those tests. For homework, again, if you turn homework in late, you can receive half credit on it. For the larger things that are like labs, it's just a 10% deduction for every day that they are turned in late. And then with this, we think about kind of homework. There's really two big types of assignments we'll have. So the first going to be problem sets, very kind of similar to the ones that you worked on individually for that part 2 of the summer project. But basically what we're going to ask you to do is have a way that you can bring your worked out solutions as a hard copy. So some people want to just do like a notebook paper you can rip out. That works as well. If you want to write down Notability and then print that and have a hard copy with you, also works. But basically what we'll do is to start that next class period, we'll go over these problems, give you all a chance to kind of ask questions, and then we're going to be submitting the hard copy of your worked out solutions plus any corrections you might have made as we went over in class. And then again, I'll try to give those back to the next class period that we have. Our second type of homework assignment is going to be having you all watch a couple of different Edpuzzle videos. Most of them are going to be, again, some of the ones from the summer project. I'm kind of going through different notes, example questions. So we'll try to do this as if it's a topic that you might have seen last year in physics, a little bit of a review. Sometimes there's more extra practice, but we try to keep the more rigorous content to stuff that we do in person. But we do try to kind of, just for the sake of time, speed through that review of topics a little bit more quickly. Oftentimes we'll do that through Edpuzzle. And just know that, again, when I'm back in person and if there's an Edpuzzle assigned, and I'll announce this, we'll typically have a short little mini quiz about the content that was contained in the Edpuzzle that next class period. So just make sure you're kind of watching along and being prepared for that when you do return to class. Now, what I'm going to do from here, just to take a quick look at the syllabus itself, just for some kind of fine detail about that kind of late work makeup policy. So now we come to the bottom of the second page. So here where we have our makeup guidelines. So basically the premise of this is that if you end up being absent on a day of a test or a quiz, you have kind of 2 days once you return to school to kind of make those up. So with, again, increased community time, flex time, built-in free periods, we'll have a bit more of a chance to kind of make those works up in a timely manner. Again, reason for this is that really not fair to students who, were there the day of the test, took it, and if you're taking 5, 6, 7, 8 days after that, that's dramatically increasing the amount of time that you have to study for that test compared to other students. So if you do not take a makeup test or quiz within the 2 days of return, there may be a deduction in points for that. So here, if you end up missing a quiz, you can just kind of make that up in my own classroom in 418 at some point. Just talk to me and we can arrange a time for that. If you miss a test, though, those tests will then be placed into the test center. And again, if there ever is a moment where you are sick or out for any reason during the units, it is kind of your responsibility to get the notes, practice problems, things like that from your classmates, or then you can always come meet with me. more than happy to work with you to kind of get you caught up to speed from what you might have missed. And again, just as we mentioned before, if you do have accommodations, those will all be given to you automatically unless you opt out of that. As far as things like homework assignments or labs, so if you are excused absent, basically what ends up happening is you have the same number of days you were out to make up that assignment. So let's say you were sick for 2 days, means you then have 2 days upon your return to make up that homework assignment. If you have an unexcused absent for any reason, you will not be eligible to receive credit for the homework that was due on the day that you were absent. And again, please do use each other as resources. If you are out to kind of get notes from each other, again, you can come talk to me. I can get you up to speed. Really want to make sure that whenever you come back to campus, you're kind of ready to go with what we have. As far as our technology policy, again, we do want you to make sure that you are kind of on task when you're using iPads. There's going to be a lot of different data collection tools you're going to be making use of the iPad for. So you do want to make sure it's charged when you come to class. Again, there are some things we're going to do in person. We might be doing, say, FRQs going to require you to write them out by hand for, say, a practice test scenario. Again, AP test is going to be done for the FRQ portion, at least, by paper and pencil. So we want to kind of get that practice while we are together as well. And then last couple of things. So again, academic integrity. Right? Basically anything that is knowingly trying to go against the nature of an assignment is considered academic dishonesty. So even though science is very collaborative, we're going to be doing plenty of things where we might be working in groups. All work that you submit does need to be your own. So for instance, there's a very clear distinction between grabbing your lab partner's data analysis sections and just copying onto your page versus actually collaboratively working with them on that particular analysis. So want to make that clear distinction between collaboration versus cheating. And again, for this, if there is an assignment that you're turning in, unless explicitly permitted by myself for that given assignment, you should assume that AI generated content is not allowed in those assignments. And then final thing from a syllabus, again, if there ever is an issue that rises with the class, question, concern you have with either the course itself, myself, someone in your class, please do kind of follow this chain of communication. So first talk to me. After that, if you don't have a resolution between our discussions, then we ask that kind of you and your parents, then if you want to elevate it to the next in that line of communication, contact our department chair. After that, then our last step would be contacting the assistant principal. And then final thing, again, according to our college board curriculum, where you have basically these 7 topics are going to be covered in the Physics C mechanics course. So last thing I want to do before we'll have you kind of start to set up your accounts is just to take a quick look at our course Canvas page. So one thing is when you arrive on the Canvas page, up at the very top, our course info and helpful links. So we have our syllabus listed. The official AP equation sheet is listed. And then this last tab for helpful links. Basically what this is just a collection of resources that I've come across or other AP physics teachers have shared with me. I think would be a really good resource if, let's say, you're home one night, you're looking for a good resource to potentially help you with a particular topic that's coming up on a homework. And maybe you don't want to quite wait until you come back in person the next day. I would look to these as kind of good tutorial video options for that. So, maybe you're working a problem set dealing with projectile motion. You're like, I just really want a little bit of a refresher on it. These would be kind of my go-to resources for that additional help. In addition to that, so if you are looking at then our individual module, any assignment that you are going to turn in for a particular grade, you'll notice it will have a point value written in parentheses afterwards. So for instance, our summer project number 1 solutions, right? There's nothing you actually have to turn in for that. It's just the answer key to help you check your work. But student questionnaire for 2 points, do have to complete that assignment. Now, at the very top of our unit, this is going to be our kind of daily calendar. I typically will update this like a week at a time. Just give you all an idea of like what's coming up, any potential due dates for homework assignments, any tests or quizzes on the radar. Want you kind of be aware of what that looks like so you can know what to expect. So final thing we'll ask you to do in the remaining time we have is just a couple pieces of housekeeping. So first, we're going to ask you to log in and create 2 accounts. One is going to be for Albert, one is going to be for Edpuzzle. Again, these codes, they are included in a Canvas assignment for you. So do not need to do this right this second, but just know that's available for Albert and Edpuzzle. Again, if you have an account from last year, go ahead and use that. If you do not yet have an account with one of these 2, I strongly recommend using your SJC email address, just a little bit easier to keep track of. And then the final thing, we're going to ask you to look around the classroom and decide today who's going to be your lab group. So you can pick your own groups. You can have up to 4 people per lab group. There is going to be an activity you all will be working on Friday that's going to make use of these groups. So just make sure you might want to exchange contact information, kind of have a way that you might be able to meet up with them come Friday. And I'll be double checking with the school. I'm not sure at the moment if they're going to have you still report to the classroom for first period, or if you're just going to have a free period and you can kind of meet up with your own. But just know I will be sending out a message about that on Canvas, just letting you know how to report for Friday's class period. And again, if you've not yet done part 2 of the summer project, try to get that in ASAP. I'm going to be publishing the solutions to part 2 for you to check your work and kind of give you a chance to kind of go over those solutions with your lab group on Friday. So if I do not yet receive that part 2 by the time I publish those Friday morning, then that part 2 would be considered late at that point. But again, if there's any questions that you do have, please feel free to reach out to me. And again, what we have kind of coming up for your homework, if we go back to our agenda slide, again, checking answers for part 1 of the summer project, completing our student questionnaire, and then lastly, making sure you get the syllabus and lab safety contract signed by the beginning of next week.